Yo, what's up guys? Dorky here, and I'll just be going over Demon Hunter super quick. It's a very simple class before I go into the build and the in-depth gameplay. So basically, you generate with Shear, which gives you Soul Fragments and Fury, and it is then dumped with Soul Cleave. Now, normally you would expect into Fracture and sometimes a Spirit Bomb. Fracture gives you a bit more souls and a bit more fury, and it replaces Shear. With Spirit Bomb, you can use this as an alternative to consume your souls rather than Soul Cleave. Now, your main mitigation is Demon Spikes, which increases your armor and your parry. It's on 2 charges. As for your defensive ones, you have Fell Devastation, which heals you, and you normally spec into Demonic, which gives you Metamorphosis. Your second defensive is Fiery Brand, which you can put on one target, making them do 40% reduced damage. And Metamorphosis is your bigger CD, where you gain a ton of armor and HP, and your shear becomes much more powerful. But that is pretty much it for how Demon Hunter plays. Aside from that, you have a bunch of sigils, one which silences an AoE, one which fears an AoE, and chains which you can talents into, which grips them all together in AoE. Okay, so going over talent builds real quick. There are many different builds you can go. Well, so on the first row, you can generally go either Abyssal Strike or Agonizing Flame. And then the second one would be either Fallout or Burning Alive, depending on the build. Burning Alive you would go if you use the quote-unquote Fiery Brand build, which I'll go a bit more in depth afterwards, but for now, Fallout for the general Spirit Bomb build, which of course you would go Spirit Bomb with that. And with the Fiery Brand build, you would actually go for Burning Alive and Infernal Armor, because Charred Flesh is bugged. This doesn't extend your Firebrand the way it's supposed to, or at least it's not intended to. But if this was to be fixed, then of course you would go for a Charred Flesh. But at the moment, Infernal Armor with Burning Alive. As for these bottom 4 rows, always opt in for Fracture, always Sigils of Chains. You can go quick in Sigils if you want to do more damage and not worry so much about your chains. But I would highly recommend using Chains. Always Demonic, and always Last Resort, just because these other options are much too weak. But that's pretty much all the talents. You either go for Spirit Bomb, or you go for Burning Alive build. And for the first one, of course, you can go Abyssal Strike or Agonizing Flame. They're both pretty good. Agonizing Flame has a bit more synergy with a certain conduit that I will be going over. Now, as for Legendaries, there aren't actually a lot of options for Vengeance, as they're mostly pretty weak. But if you were to go for the Fiery Brand build, which I would highly recommend, you should go for a Fiery Soul, which reduces the cooldown on your Fiery Brand. So this combined with Charred Flesh and Burning Alive, it's a pretty strong combo. But if you're not playing for that build, you can go for Razlik's Defilement, which reduces the cooldown on your sigils. Or you can potentially opt in for a Vitality Sacrifice. Aside from that, there's a potential of using Fell Flame Fortification, but for now I would highly recommend just using Razlik's Defilement. For Covenant, honestly, Kyrian is the only way to go just because it does too much damage and File of Serenity is extremely good. As for Soulbinds, you can either default to Pelagos or you could go for Clay if you really want, as Valiant Strikes is definitely not a bad pick. But as for your Conduits, on their potency, they're actually all really strong, but Growing Inferno is a must pick. For the second one, you can either go for a Repeat Decree or Soul Furnace. They're both really good. And for Endurance, if you're playing Fire Brand build, I would go Defender, otherwise go for Shattered Restoration and Viscous Ink. As for stats, just go for a high haste and high versatility. Mastery is an okay stat, but I wouldn't worry about mastery and crit too much. Get as much haste and versatility as you can. Alright, so let's look over some gameplay real quick. We're in a 15 Mist. We're using the CDR Legendary on our sigil, and we're playing Spirit Bomb. So this is a pretty offensive build. And we do have all our CDs up. We have double spikes, we have Fell Dev. So we open the poll with our Elsine Decree here. Actually, not the greatest Elsine Decree. I think I might have missed them. But anyways, we had spikes on Poe. We're still taking massive damage though. and we're still fine. So here I pop my Feldev as our spikes is ending. And while spikes is up, you're literally just spamming Spirit Bomb with Fracture. So it's like frack and bomb, frack and bomb. Now we have dropped our meta, so we end up covering with a spikes. And by this point, we don't have a whole lot of CDs. However, I do have my trinket, so I end up using that to cover. Actually, I do use another spikes instead. So my spikes just came up in time. Second spike is up. Second spike has fallen, so we end up using our trinket. Now at this point, if the pole was living for a little bit longer, we could have kited. But since we're about to finish up the pole, it's not too much to worry about. Now we do end the pole, we have practically no cooldowns left except for Firebrand, which works out really well because on single target, Firebrand is extremely powerful. Now we could spike here, but we do have one recharging as well, so we end up using Brand instead. But that's pretty much how it goes for the Spirit Bomb build. You build up to 4 or 5 souls, you bomb, and then when you can't bomb, you just spam Soul Cleave in between. Keep up Immora, and you basically want to rotate something like Spike, Feldev, Spike, Firebrand. But in this case, it was enough for us to stay alive. And if we really wanted to, we could have used Pain Suppression in between too, as we did have it up. Now this time we're in a 17 Mist, and we're playing the Brand build. So you can see the comparison between the Brand build and the Spirit Bomb build. We have the CDR on our Legendary on Brand, and we have Burning Alive, which spreads our Brand. Now we go into the pole, we do have spikes, we also have Feldev and Firebrand. So here, spike's about to drop, Feldev. I honestly should have used Firebrand first, but I wanted to be a little bit more offensive and just get my damage out with Feldev. So instead of Firebranding, I end up using Feldev, which I would highly recommend using Brand first. So we're in here, our meta is dropping soon, so we want to Brand early, so that way it starts spreading before we lose our mitigation. Still have a second left, and I'm watching the nameplates, and I see 2 of them has spread. Or well, 2 of them is about to be spread. So there's a third one here, and we have the 4th one. Now we end up getting Pain Suppression too, which is not ideal, but it's alright, just because with the Firebrand build, you have a lot of mitigation. As you can see, Firebrand is dropping soon, but it's fine. We have spikes back up, and we're tanking the pole for a bit. The pole's actually dying really fast, but we actually have so much more. I literally just used Firebrand earlier, and it's about to come up again, and I still have my tank trinket too. So if this was living longer, I would still have stuff to cover up. We'll finish up the pole with our Brand actually coming back up. And keep in mind, a 17 is actually much harder than a 15. So a 17 right now is extremely deadly. So you can kind of compare the damage I'm taking in this run compared to the other one. And I will be showing the breakdown here on the left and right. If you want to see, on the left it's going to be the Firebrand breakdown, and on the right it's going to be the Spirit Bomb breakdown. Just so you can compare damage, but as you can see with the Firebrand build, you actually have so much more mitigation uptime, just because you can rotate so many different things. Ideally, it would look something like Spikes, Brand, Spikes, Feldev, then Spikes, Brand, and then back to something else within between, like either Pain Sup or Trinket, and then another Spike and Brand. So you can actually live for a very long time as a Vengeance. But that is it for the Vengeance guide. Hopefully you guys have learned something. Please like and subscribe if you can, and follow my Twitch channel, as I will be playing a lot more tanks and probably some Unholy DK too if you're interested in that.